Well, good morning, Uganda, and of course, still a very special Friday. Very many thanks for joining us, and of course, taking the time to always keep it here at UBC, of course, where we do inspire you. Now, there are some things that sometimes you need to know, and of course, methods that have been tested and that can make you a little bit better. Some of these things we get through the writings that people have done, and of course that is where books come in, publications, and well, a guideline. And some of these books actually, they would help actually bring up the best in you. Now, this morning we do have a book to talk about, that is The CEO in You. Well, some of these things I'm telling you. And with me in studio, I do have the author, that is Irene Birungi Mugisha, who will be talking to us this morning about the book. Mrs. Irene, very many thanks for joining us this morning, and thank you for coming in.
Thank you too. Thank you for hosting me. It's my pleasure to be back in the home.
Yes.
Yes, so I'm looking forward to seeing how best I can communicate, inform and inspire your viewers.
Yes, and by the way, with your background in journalism and of course having been part of the communication world, one would think obviously whatever is in this book has a way that readers will be interpreting that can relate especially to the basic life. Now, we want you to talk to us about, you know, the title of the book itself. What is the background there? How do you come up with a title like this?
That has been a question that I've encountered on several since the launch. That was in March. The CEO in You. I was inspired to write about the CEO in You because I needed to demystify the fact that we all think being a CEO, you need to be at a certain level. You need to have gone through different steps. The CEOs are normally defined to be the corporate CEOs that we know, the managing directors of the different corporate associations or entities or organizations. But I'm here to inform each and every person that you see you in your own capacity, in your own purpose life, because you're in position to do things that anyone else cannot do. What you're doing right now, the viewer out there maybe cannot do it, or they can also do it, but do it in a different way. So you really are purpose to have your own dignified purpose life that can define you to be a CEO at all capacities.
Yeah. Well, that also speaks to how you know, people always have this view, like, you know, being CEO is for the rich people. You're already somewhere, and basically that's what would come into my mind. But also, like, the genre you're looking at in this book, is it inspired by, you know, personal stories or some of the fictitious characters you're bringing in? What is it about?
The story is really about my journey, but the journey that has gone through a number of stages to the position I'm at now. So the journeys of, from the time I was in position to understand who am I, you know, building that confidence of knowing that I'm a woman, I'm a girl, I need to do this, I'm going into my menstrual periods. What am I doing with myself? Then to the journey where maybe you're done with school and then you're going into the world of employment. So what does that bring to you at that point of season? Then after being employed, what else? You're an employer. So if you're an employer in that season, what are you doing? So it really talks about key steps of my journey that have built the person who am I, who is you see now at that level of working in the high office, but just didn't come from nowhere. It's a process. It's one step at a time. It's a journey that starts with one step that will lead to the destination of 1,000 steps or 1,000 miles. So to me, it is I'm looking at the excitement stage, looking at the expectation stage, looking at the experience stage, looking at the exposure stage, and then looking at the empowerment stage, and later on looking at that exceptional stage. So the CEOs you're talking about, yes, the CEOs of the ones you'd mentioned, like Richard Branson, you know, those are the exceptional stage now. They have built their mantra, they have built their journey to reach where they are, to be persons of influence. So, but at the end of it all, I'm just informing everyone who will be able to either get chance to read this book that we are all CEOs.
Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, interesting that you talk about your life journey, and of course, to some extent, it gets personal. You're bringing out stories, your experience, you know, for people to relate with. And of course, that means you're pouring out all these challenges and gaps and everything that was there that got you to a level you're at. I mean, you are in a big office in serving the country, but at the same time, you want to inspire people to do that. And this is something you've done through your writing, through the book, The CEO in You. What is the stage for you, the journey for you writing this book? Right from the first chapter, you're describing what to the reader getting to the end, that is like, wow, what is that stage for you?
Well, I'm a journalist, right?
Yeah.
So all we do is write.
Yes.
So writing is my passion. I think that's where it all started. Writing is my passion. I do a lot of journaling since I think I was even in primary 6. I loved writing, having a mother who is a teacher by profession. So it was one of the skills probably I picked in my earlier stages. But then I grew the passion of writing or becoming an author about 10 years ago. But then I wasn't in position to do that, probably because of the schedules I had in my life. That's the time when my career in journalism was very demanding. I traveled a lot, and I remember all the time I traveled on long distances, all I did is to write something about the journey. So at this particular moment, when I started really writing about this book, is just 3 years ago, during the total lockdown, where we all had a lot of time, you know, to ourselves. And to me, I chose to use my time more valuable, to find myself in what else can I be able to do that is positive, that is impactful, that is bringing out the best out of me. Because it was a time of total lockdown, I was away from family. I was residing at the workplace. And just the fact that I was not with my family could have done something different, probably get me to anxiety, which anxiety could have totally maybe allowed me to be sick or not look forward for the next day. So I chose to write, and that's how I started the book.
Well, that's quite inspiring. A lot of us in lockdown did very many things, but a very productive time it was. It was a very challenging time, and good to know that you actually did more into writing. But also it begs a question, because I know that usually like readers have expectations on, you know, this book is out. What am I expecting? What can I relate with in this book?
True.
What are some of those key points that you have put across in the book that can, you know, a lot of readers from different genres can actually be expecting?
To talk about expectations, I think to me they were more minimal. My whole interest was to inspire. So I was really focused on informing and inspiring. And so to me, my journey of becoming an author, which I'm so proud of, to join the local authors of Uganda, and that's what we should all build, because we all have a story to tell. You have a story to tell,
sure.
A story that everyone can relate to. So my story can relate to each and every person in Uganda and also across the country or across the borders. So it was really about pouring out that this is the Irene, not the Irene you see as a handler of the head of state, but the Irene that can really relate to you, that this Irene that actually went to school from the general schools like any other person, the Irene that achieved or went through the different challenges that everyone can go through, the Irene that probably had to stay home for another 2 weeks because the father could not afford that school fees on time. But here I am, so it's just building confidence that the journey we all have can be relatable. But at the same time, it's that journey that you need to capitalize on and look out what is good in you that you can actually share, that you can actually bring out. I speak more of my mantra, which is blossom where you're planted. You need to be different. How are you different at UBC? Is it just to come and be on the screens? No. look out for what should be done differently. And so the expectations to me were more of allowing people to appreciate who they are. And the moment I can do that, then I'll be fulfilled with satisfaction. So that's it.
Well, I am picking out something here, blossom where you planted.
Oh, yeah.
And this is something that I think a lot of us always ignore, like you're somewhere and you believe maybe this is, you know, a box. And sometimes I think writers have written about things like, if you cannot think out of the box, get rid of the box, stuff like that. So you take through, readers, you take them through a journey that is, you know, personal for you, but also something that they can learn from. And of course, take away the mentality of CEOs are supposed to be this kind of way. And obviously, we can all learn a thing or two, and mostly on how to grow ourselves. And of course, that shapes into even today's writing. And as writers, obviously, you face a huge challenge because people have a way they want to relate with writers to the stories that actually happen around them, and that is basically what you're saying right now. But looking at the CEO in you, and of course some of the stories that people have gone through, like you as even having a background of journalism, you know that, you know, people have been struggling, especially financially, and we're talking about a very bad economy right now, and there are all these struggles. As you know, being part of this writers world, what are some of the stories you look at and you're like, no, I have to put my story out there. I have to inspire people amidst everything that is challenging. What do you think is, you know, coming out for you as writers, for you as a writer, to be able to look at what can I do next, you know, to make a change, to inspire change?
A change maker. We are all change makers, and we're all potentially change makers, because again, what you've just mentioned, it just draws me back when I was a journalist, actually, as a business reporter. And I chose to be a business reporter because I was looking forward to be impactful. And by being impactful, my stories were always looking out at that one individual person in a setting of a very normal setting, but making a difference in a community. I remember one time I traveled all the way to Kabale, and I had to interview a lady called Peace, who was a mushroom grower. And all he did was have mushroom in his own home, you know, just within the kitchen, behind the house. But that alone, the little income she would receive, or she would pick from the mushrooms every little harvest, she used the same to empower the women around her. These are wives at home, to be able to get something that they can do for themselves. So as journalists, really, it's, we suppose the principles are three, you know, write a fair, balanced, and objective story. So are we doing that? If the economy is not doing well, what are the factors that are driving this economy? But again, I think that's a story that we only look out from the outside and not the inside. I think right now the economy for us is doing so well. When you look at the statistics around the East African community, the other countries are actually hit by COVID, and we are so blessed as Uganda for what we are going through right now. Because you can have food to eat, We have a lot of wasted food. What are we doing with the wasted food? So there are things we can actually look out as journalists and allow people to appreciate, other than giving them false information that really drains them away. Give them hope. So let's look at stories that bring hope. And that's how you become a change maker, because to me it's looking at what is the gap around, how best can you use the environment to relate to the people that can be able to be satisfied with what you're sharing with them. And the space for the journalists right now is amazing. We're in a digital era where it's about, you know, access to information. Let's use this technology as an enabler.
Challenging, actually, because some of these people are getting information through all the channels, some false, some right. So it gets challenging when you're trying to put out a good story that actually should bring in the change. And I think that's almost a challenge to everyone who is trying to, you know, bring out the objective story, like you mentioned, and being a change maker. That takes in a lot. Obviously, that means
still, but you be intentional. What do you want to drive home? The moment you can think right of what you want to drive home, then you'll do everything possible to bring out that story. We need to avoid being doing rush hour stories, yeah, because either the editor wants a story or because you had your little small hours doing something else. We need to put in longer hours in what we are doing, yeah. So we need also to do a lot of research, much as we have this tech that is enabling us to do what we are doing. I believe we're in the right place as journalists right now to do good impact to the country.
Well, the space that we also want to actually take advantage and make sure that people are benefiting from these writings. And of course, we're talking about the book, The CEO in You right now. Recently you launched it and forwarded by His Excellency the President of Uganda, and much of that also through the publication. Now, as you know, he is the president of the country, forwarding your book. What has that journey been like for you, especially also with the publication? And how has it, you know, shaped your publication even at that access points as well?
I don't think it would be access points. My first encounter with His Excellency, first of all, was in 2003 as a journalist just like you at a business trip in Thailand, and I was given an opportunity to interview him. That's the first encounter with him. Later on, I also had an opportunity to do an interview with him. That is in 2011 when he was launching his manifesto. And again, blessed, I was the only one that was asked to do that interview. And but as I was doing that, nothing encountered that I would be his handler 14 years later. Well, as they may say fit, but to me it is just that journey. You know, sometimes we don't actually look at what we have gone through that will actually pave your journey in the future. So at the time of being his handler, to me it has been a blessing to serve this country. It's a privilege to serve my country. It's a privilege to serve the head of state, and a very big honor to be able to tap into the resource, the amount of resource he has, him as His Excellency, the President of Uganda, the patience that he exhibits, the knowledge that he can define anything and be able to interpret any situation. It is something that I cannot take for granted, and I believe through that journey it has been able to fulfill anyone's wish to be the President's handler. But that, to me, is not something I would really conquer as a monument of pleasure. But what else are you doing into that space? Are you adding value? So to me it was about what else can I do to add value in the space that I'm provided to. So it is being able to encounter and see that you interface with Ugandans to allow them access the information they need, to allow them to access the kind of decisions they want to have to be done. So it's a space of the private sector that allowed me now to bring on board while in the space that I'm working in. And so the forward, as you have mentioned, he's always giving forward to a number of people. I'm blessed to be one of them.
Sure. And of course his wisdom, you know, that kind of guidance as well that he gives, especially when it comes to, you know, you're inspiring Ugandans. And he has always been very clear about that, you know, something that can, you know, change lives of Ugandans. And some of the things we do it through practical tools. True, that are exposed in books like this. And I think it's very commendable work to see that you're able to use that space that has been, you know, you've had, but also make sure that people can get to see that life right from the beginning, like you mentioned, from your journey in 2003. And you have been there trying to, you know, have this story. And that is something that you get to share.
Consistency. In life, you need to be consistent. Consistent, be committed, have the confidence that, you know, you can do it. Talk to yourself. I joined the journalism world by just talking to myself, I can do it. You know, I can do it, I can do it. And that's how I joined to be a reporter. So, and then later on, have personal development. Train yourself, you know. Do not go to the flaws. The flaws should allow you to have a bliss of life and should allow you to have a purpose, but more so to be driven by the most important thing is, what is your talent, you know? I was just speaking to the gentleman who ushered me, and you know, he's telling me he's an editor, and I'm like, so what drives you? Yeah. And he mentioned, yeah, my talent is in skilling. I said, do you make a difference? And says, yes, I do make a difference. So the moment you tap into what you think makes you happy, it becomes easy to be relatable and to bring out there. Probably one other thing I can say is just keep practicing what you want to be. Yeah. When we get the best footballers, the best athletes, they practice. They do the training. So in anyone's life, you need to practice. Practice what you want to be in the future, and that will take you to places.
Well, a lot of talents actually always die out because we ignore, and you're like, okay, maybe I'll not do it. Like that may be thing that keeps people back. Yeah, and yet you have the talent, and you know that can be grown, that you can thrive wherever you are, which is something that I think people need a constant reminder about. Some people, you need inspiration. You need that person who is telling you, no, I was actually there, and I did it. I moved past that barrier that was there, and that's very, very inspiring, you know, to look at as well. But we talk about now someone who is out there and is wondering, where can I get this book? What platforms have you used? Especially, you look at these days, by the way, I think most people, being the digital world like we're talking about, will just think, okay, I can get on my phone and find a way to get this book.
Oh yeah, of course, using both the digital and the other main points. The CEO in you, a change maker, blossom where you're planted, to be mindfully purposed. It's a handy book, speaking to basics of life, how you can network, how you can live positive. And so to me, really, as well as you can be inspired, it's a book that can be received or accessed from Aristoc. There's Book Point. It's on Amazon. It's on Kindle. So yeah, it's on all spaces, and you can easily achieve it, receive it. Yeah.
Well, there you have it. You know, you can get the book, and of course, a lot of the stories that are written right there that would make a huge difference. And obviously, like she mentioned, blossom where you planted, and that is something that's a mantra that I'm taking on right
blossom
now.
Where you planted.
Yes, that is the mantra that I'm taking on myself. But as we move to conclude, there's always a mystery about, you know, how a story shapes everyone, but also behind that is, you know, you have different writers that usually get a little bit of, you know, in their journey. You describe, maybe there's this one thing that is interesting in the book that you don't want your readers to miss out, that you can easily pick out and say, I wrote about this, and this is something that, without giving the spoilers, this is something that I believe everyone should read. A particular part of the book that you feel, this is a mastery. I'll
try and read you one. It's on page 126.
Perfect, perfect. That would be perfect.
And it's still under the chapter of Blossom where you're planted.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
To be filled with your own self, and it's about empowerment. So, page 126, I'm saying, a word of caution though. You will face quite a number of obstacles and opposing forces in your journey. As you choose to bloom and network, do not be shocked when you meet challenges such as discouragement, backbiting, people talking behind your back, people stabbing you in your back, and so on. It is an occupational hazard for those who want to grow the CEO in them. Learn to navigate through life regardless of these things. Let them be your stepping stones to greatness. So cheer yourself up, preach to yourself, a revival if you have to, like a plant that navigates from the dark towards the rays of the sun. So find a way to always angle ahead in your life and move forward regardless of what obstacles are placed along the way. At times of obstacles we face in our environments are things that we cannot necessarily avoid. So that's why my mantra is to bloom where you're planted.
Awesome, amazing. That is kind of amazing. And the way you bring it out, because it's relatable. We all have all these different obstacles.
Oh, yes.
And you know, sometimes it's very hard to overcome. But seeing a story where someone says, it's actually possible. It's possible to overcome that.
Yeah.
That's
it's all in the
amazing.
mind. Yeah. That I'm told I'm ugly and you believe you're ugly. No, it's all in the mind. We're all beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And usually it's the people around us that kind of bring in that kind of, you know, negative energy. But for you to be able to move past that and blossom as you're putting it, it takes a lot of courage and it takes a lot of determination that I think a lot of people actually have in them and certainly sometimes never realize.
Sure.
But also, what would be your, you know, probably takeaways from writing this book and maybe advisory to, some advice to the readers out there, but also to the writers, basically, as well. And if someone out there who is feeling like, maybe I have this book that I've thought of, I've drafted something, I want to write, I want to get there.
Perfect, true.
Yeah.
Since the book was published, I've actually encountered a number of those persons who have several of their pieces of books shelved, and they've not been given that encouragement to get out there and have the books published. And so a number of them who've come to me, I've just told them it's possible. Just be committed and tell the story the way you'd want it to be told. And those who've read the book, they've told me, wow, I have been encouraged to have my book out. And so it's an inspiration to me as well as motivating. So I'm looking forward to also having the next issue or the next book out there. So my word of encouragement is really, it's possible. Tell your story. No one else can tell your story but yourself. And it starts by believing in you, that you are a change maker, believing in yourself, that you are who you are because God purposed you to be that person, and have the faith in everything that you do. But most of all is to be determined to do that the right way. And when you tell the story, you don't have to navigate away from the story. Just tell it as is. Even when the challenges have led you to feel at the bottom, just say it as it is, because by someone reading that, they're able to say, wow, I went through that too. So if that person could go through it, then why not me? When you read the story You're Becoming by Michelle, you can tell the story that she's relatable to me, relatable to anyone else. She's just any other young lady who, you know, was in that setting. It may be different from Uganda, but almost the same setting. And she was able to become the first lady of the United States. So it is possible for everyone. And to me, out here is to really encourage everyone. Just tell your story and let that book come out.
Very, very possible, and I'm looking at possibilities, of course, that everyone has in their space, and obviously very well put, like you have to follow that dream, you have to follow everything you put your hands on and make sure that you get it there. Well, very many thanks this morning again for joining us and of course sharing your story in this book, and we're looking forward. I actually have a colleague who already who read this book. It's called Mark, and he was telling me, Mollen, you can't be the only one who hasn't read this book by now.
Exactly, and
telling
really,
very
you can't even say it on air.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I've not read
like
the book
I
and you're interviewing me.
Like, don't say it. But I know I must have a copy, and to the Ugandans out there, please make sure you have a copy of this book. Very inspiring, but also a lot of good stories that come out that will get you off your chair and be like, yeah, I have delayed.
Yeah.
Well, we can't have enough of this, but obviously we'll be having more engagements right here regarding, and of course looking forward to the next book. That means we need another story.
You may be part of the story, so.
Oh, great, great. See you right there. But thank you very much, audience. Good morning, Uganda. And of course, making sure that you always make a time to be with us right here. We still have entertainment in the house that will be coming in right after this. And of course, we'll also be giving you sports highlights. But for now, we will be taking a short break. When we get back, we get you more of what we have for you this Friday. Good morning.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Eyo jole sesi yange irisiti tompa bidara irisiti ojja kumpa irisiti tompa bidara irisiti ojja kumpa irisiti tompa bidara mpa irisiti yange.
That's right. Insist on getting your e-receipt. It's your ticket to fantastic prizes, including motorbikes, laptops, fridges, and a fully paid 6-day safari for 2 in Uganda. Take a picture of your e-receipt, upload it to the URA website or mobile app, and you could be the lucky winner. The more receipts you upload, the higher your chances of winning. Terms and conditions apply. More details on our social media channels.
Uganda Revenue Authority. Developing Uganda together.
It's Freaky Friday from Airtel. Buy or gift. Buy or give.
Get freaky too! Dial star 100 star 10 hash to load a Freaky Friday bundle for you to enjoy the best offers on voice and data.
To buy a bundle for friends and family, dial star 100 star 10 hash. Freaky Friday with Airtel. Buy or gift a bundle today. Dial star 100 star 10 hash to get started.
Airtel, a reason to imagine.
Surely this is their last chance to claim the goal which will take this into extra time.